You're live. Good.
Okay, there you go.
Good evening. Hope you're doing well tonight. Welcome to our YouTube channel, your YouTube channel. Tonight, we're just going to spend a little bit of time talking. I'm your psychologist for tonight. I'm making a house call and I'm doing a wellness check. Just seeing how you're doing tonight in the privacy of your own home. We are close to the end of January. So we have been removed from the holidays almost 31 days. Now, during the month of December, we had three major holidays. There was Hanukkah, a Jewish festival, which started on November the 28th and finished on December the 6th. Then we had Christmas, and we all know the start date. And the final holiday in December was Kwanzaa. And Kwanzaa started on December the 26th and ended January the 1st. So once again, three major holidays in the month of December. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the holiday blues. The holiday season is a time of supposedly great joy, happiness, gladness, celebration, family gatherings, festivity, and just a real positive fun time. Unfortunately, for many people, the holidays is a time of sadness, loneliness, depression, brokenness, stress, anxiety, worry, and it can be filled with negative emotions. It can be a time of great reflection. Some of us, we tend to look back on what has taken place during the year. And people have a tendency to dwell on the negative things, the negative events that has occurred. We call this the holiday blues. According to the APA, the American Psychological Association, of which I am a member, 44% of women and 33% of men surveyed report that they feel stressed during the holidays. The holiday blues overcome people who are forced to show joy and positive feelings during this time. Some people tell me that they can't wait for the holidays to finish. I wish I didn't have to attend a family gathering. If it was up to me, I would just sleep the day away. Can you imagine that? A time that's supposed to be celebratory, a time of great festivity. Many people wanted to go away quickly. Feelings of sadness that last throughout the holiday season, especially during the months of November and December, are often referred to as the holiday blues or holiday depression. For some, the holiday blues can last into the month of January. So that's exactly why we're talking about it today, on January the 27th. There are many reasons for doing this wellness check tonight. When I see people in my office, I ask questions. So tonight I want to ask you, how are you doing? How are you really, really doing? When we're asked this question, most of us will say, I'm okay. I'm good. When in reality, we're not good. So I want to ask you tonight, how are you doing? How are you really feeling? Take a moment to process this question internally. Ask yourself, are you feeling sad? Are you worried? Are you anxious? Are you feeling good? Are you angry? Are you nervous? Are you depressed? Are you experiencing some emotional struggles or even some mental health issues? Just dwell on those questions. I do want you to know that it is okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. Now, take note of this. People with a prior mental health condition are more likely to experience holiday blues or holiday depression. According to the National Alliance of Mental Illness, 64% of people with an existing mental illness report that during the holidays, their condition worsened. Can you imagine that? Once again, a time where we're supposed to be joyous. We're supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be elated about the season. But for many people, especially those struggling with a mental health issue, are depressed at this time of the year. Now, what exactly causes the holiday blues? There's a number of reasons. So let me just highlight a few. First, painful memories of loved ones who have passed away tend to surface during the holidays. The holidays is a time where we think about people who are no longer with us, family members, loved ones who have passed away. And their passing, their death, for some reason, it just heightens during the holidays. The death of someone can really affect us. It can be trauma. And some of us, we struggle with the loss of a loved one. I had someone tell me in my office, the holidays, it's just no big deal for me. Both of my parents passed away. So it's like I'm an orphan. So the loss of someone close to you can be very, very traumatic. And for some of us who have not dealt with the grief, it tends to surface during the holidays. So trauma is a real part of death of a loved one. And one thing I know, we don't take the time to grieve. When a loved one passes away, or a family member, a close friend, a relative, we tend to keep it moving. And a lot of people say, Dr. Forrest, I didn't take time to grieve. I talked with a young man on Tuesday, His mother passed during the holidays, and he didn't take the time to grieve. So I said to him, slow down. Take some time off work if you need to, and grieve the loss of your mother, because that's a significant relationship. The death of a loved one can cause uncomplicated bereavement. It's like the person becomes emotionally numb. They're not experiencing life to the fullest. So the circumstances surrounding a loved one's death, as well as one's relationship to the individual, can have a major impact, a major effect on how one handles that loss. So know that when a loved one passes, it's likely that you're going to be diagnosed with what we call an adjustment disorder, which means that now that that loved one is no longer in your life, is no longer here, you have to adjust to life without that person. And for some people, that adjustment can take 6 months. For some, it might take a year. For some, it's a few years. For others, they may not adjust. So when we lose a loved one, those negative feelings of that loss, of that trauma, of those negative emotions, they tend to surface and they become heightened during the holidays. That's a part of the holiday blues. Usually it's very, very difficult for an individual to process an unexpected or sudden death. This tends to knock people down significantly. When the death is sudden, unexpected, for example, someone goes to the hospital because of a minor problem, and then you get the phone call that something has happened and they're no longer here, it sets people into an emotional tailspin. And sometimes it is hard to recover from that. It is very difficult for an individual to process an unexpected or sudden death, just as it is extraordinarily difficult for a child to grieve the loss of a parent, a woman to grieve the loss of her husband, and a parent to grieve the loss of a child. I spoke to a woman not long ago. She invited her son for Thanksgiving dinner. As he was pulling up at the house, there was a drive-by shooting, and her son was shot as he was trying to come up into the house. So the mother who invited her son for Thanksgiving dinner was riddled with guilt. She said, I wish I hadn't invited him. So that tragic memory haunts that woman day and night. So Thanksgiving for that woman will never be the same. Holiday blues. She has difficulty sleeping. She has nightmares about it. It's tough. It's hard. So when a tragedy occurs like that, where you lose a loved one that you're really, really close to, it saps the energy, the happiness from the holidays. So painful memories of loved ones who are no longer with us tends to produce some significant negative emotions. Negative emotions such as guilt, anger, resentment, bitterness, unforgiveness. And those types of emotions, they affect the individual internally, and it causes damage internally because the body secretes certain chemicals in overabundance that does damage internally. And then it also does damage to our interpersonal relationships with others when we're carrying those negative emotions. And so many of us are carrying those emotions during the holiday because it's so hard to separate from those things. So when you see people, you just never know what they're going through. So just remember to be gracious to people, to be able to say, hello, how are you doing? Say something encouraging, because even though people may look good on the outside, sometimes they are really struggling internally. The holiday blues. How are you doing right now? We are well into January, but for so many of us, the holiday blues lingers. I remember a young woman, her mother died, and her brother was in jail. So she asked me to write a letter to the DOC, Department of Corrections, to see if her brother could attend his mother's funeral. I wrote the letter, and thank God they allowed him to come to the funeral. But his sister told me that she didn't expect that they would bring her brother shackled to the funeral. She says that memory, not just of her mother's death and lowering the casket into the ground, but what she remembers is the brother being there shackled. So the holidays for her, it's just a negative memory. So we don't know what people are dealing with. We don't know what they're struggling with. But those are some of the things that bring about the holiday blues. So number one is painful memories, especially the death of a loved one or someone who is significant to you, or when that death happens in a sudden factor. And when you hear it, you're in a state of denial. Because when we look at the stages of grief, one of the first stages is denial. I can't believe that he's dead. The person is in a fog. They're grief stricken. And as I said earlier, we just don't make the time to deal with grief. But grief, it takes time. And it's something that is individually based. Because some people may want to be around others, and others want to be totally alone. And people can shift in the sense that one moment they want to be alone, and the next minute they want to be surrounded by people. Grief is mysterious. And once again, it's individually based. And we all grieve differently. And sometimes when people are grieving, we have to be careful about what we say. I've had people tell me that, I know that they're trying to be nice, but when they say that, you know what, he or she's in a better place, they say they get angry. I spoke to a father who lost his daughter, and he said, no, she's not in a better place because she should be right here with me. So be careful what you say when people are grieving, because they're in tremendous pain that you and I may not be able to comprehend. Another factor that brings about the holiday blues: broken relationships, relationship problems. As a psychologist, I can tell you this, that the greatest struggle on earth is in the area of relationships. As people, we struggle with relationships for many reasons. But that is one of the major causes of of the holiday blues. For example, you're engaged to be married. Things are going well. And then all of a sudden you find out something that you didn't know about your partner, and it devastates you. And now you make the decision that I can't marry this person. It would not be a good decision for me to move forward with the relationship. So that relationship has imploded. You spent years with a person. And now you're saying, I can't do it. That brings about the holiday blues. Relationships, it's a struggle. Whether it's between husband and wife, brother and sister, co-workers, aunts and uncles. But the greatest struggle on earth is in the area of relationships. So I ask tonight, what's your relationship like with your significant other? Is it positive? Is it negative? Are you contemplating leaving the relationship? Are you struggling in terms of what to do? Do you feel that you've had enough? I spoke to someone just the other day, and she said, you know what? As much as I want to stay in the relationship, I know that I can't do it. I've got to get out. And I said, how come? She said, I've been in the relationship for over 10 years. And in the last little while, I've been sick. And I came to the realization that he never asked me if he could come to any of my doctor's appointments. And giving all this time, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And when I asked him to help, he said he couldn't take the time off work. So after many years, I've got to move in a different direction. So relationships, the greatest struggle on earth. Maybe right now you're thinking about a divorce. I had someone tell me that my divorce was finalized in December. The holiday blues. I didn't want the divorce, but I felt that I had no choice. So now I'm moving forward as a single person. So maybe a relationship was terminated during the holidays, and now you're walking alone. So you're going to think about that relationship. You're going to think about that broken relationship. And you're going to be struggling with what ifs. What am I going to do now? But relationships, huge struggle in this game of life. And sometimes one of the hardest things that we can do is to make a positive, difficult decision about a relationship, especially when you have put time, energy, monies, sweat, tears, equity, and now you have the prospect of moving in a different direction. You're going to think about that person, especially when the holiday comes, when their birthday comes, when the anniversary date comes. It's not going to be easy. So relationships tend to cause struggles with the holiday blues. And for some of us, it's really, really hard to navigate our way through. Some of us are struggling with family members who are incarcerated, relationships that have been severed. We haven't seen them in a long time. And I have people saying, I can't force myself to go to the jail. I can't go to the prison. It's too much. I just can't do it. Now, I really want to go, but it's just taking too much out of me. So many of you have sons, daughters, relatives, husbands, wives, close friends who you haven't seen for years because they're in jail or prison. And some of us are feeling embarrassed about that. We're feeling ashamed. What did I do wrong? Especially as parents. Do your best not to carry that guilt. Because as people, as adults, we make decisions. And being an adult, unfortunately, is taking responsibility for what you do. So yes, those things bring on the holiday blues. Because those individuals are not there at the supper table. They're not joining us in fellowship. They're not engaging in the festivity and the celebration. So because we have these frontal lobes where we can think and we have memories, it brings about the holiday blues. Relationships. It's a major struggle for us as human beings. It's not easy for us. Another factor that brings about the holiday blues, financial struggles. Money. It's an issue for many. Some of us have a tendency to overspend during the holidays. Financial struggles always enhance and bring about the holiday blues. That's just a fact. A global investment company found that 53% of people experience financial stress due to the holiday spending. People make these elaborate budgets. I'm only going to spend $20 on a gift for each person. And you know what we do? We overshoot the budget. I remember one person said, you know what? I am tired of buying my family's love. I'm going to stop buying their love. Because if I have to buy their love, it's not worth it. So many of us, we put ourselves in a financial bind to maybe look good, or maybe we're doing it out of guilt. And when those bills come in January, that's when people really get depressed. The holiday blues. So being able to manage your monies and to spend appropriately is important There's so much commercialism when it comes to the holidays. And that puts pressure on people to give gifts that they can't afford to give. And it produces a burden, it produces a stressor for those who are already financially strapped, not to mention those who don't have a job. You can't buy love. So financial struggles enhance the holiday blues. Another factor, loneliness and isolation. Right now, we live in a world that's more connected than ever before, but we are lonelier and more disconnected than ever. And that's a tragedy, but it's also reality. Loneliness and isolation produce the holiday blues. Loneliness is a subjective feeling that people are not with you, that people don't understand you. So you feel disconnected and you feel alone, and it puts some pressure on you to stay by yourself. We can be in a crowd of people and still feel alone. Be willing to reach out to others and be willing to communicate with others and engage with your community. Now, it's okay to have a small community, but make sure you have a community. Right now, as we speak, the United Kingdom has declared that loneliness is a pandemic. They have commissioned a task force to focus on loneliness. Our Creator created us to be in community, in common unity, in fellowship with each other. We are neurobiologically wired to be in contact with others. So when you're separating yourselves from others, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Whoever said no man is an island is absolutely correct. But loneliness and isolation produces the holiday blues. I want to touch on another factor that has produced the holiday blues. And before I go any further, let me just thank the people who have been sending in comments and the viewers. They're greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. CV-19, COVID-19, everyone knows that we could talk about that for a long, long time. COVID-19 has changed how we function. It has changed the world universally. Everything is different. We're told that we need to social distance. There's restrictions about family gatherings. And this has caused tremendous conflict in families. I had someone tell me that they're all set to go to a family gathering. And then they got a call, "Are you guys vaccinated?" And they said no. And the other family member, a close family member, said, "You can't come." They couldn't believe it. They were angry. They were distraught. but they couldn't go and visit their family member. Some people have told me, hey, you know what? We have a baby. So if you're not vaccinated, we're not letting you in the house. People are worried about this pandemic because it has changed our lives completely. Everyone is watching the news. They're focused on the numbers escalating. They're focused on risk factors. They're wondering what's the next variant. It has caused tremendous turmoil, problems within families, problems with relationships. There's tremendous uncertainty in the family. What's going to happen? People are losing their jobs. We see that medication for anti-anxiety is escalating. Medication for depression is off the charts. Medication for sleep. People are just struggling with insomnia. I spoke to a dentist and he said, one of the things that I'm seeing is that people are coming in and they're grinding their teeth. And he said he's never seen so many people coming in with that issue. And I said, what do you think that's all about? I was waiting for his response. He said stress or anxiety. And he's absolutely correct. We are more stressed than ever before. We are anxious at the highest level because of COVID-19. And I could go on and on and on about COVID-19. It has impacted people in many ways. Someone said today, COVID-19 has been a blessing. And I said, okay, tell me more. And she said, people are turning to their God. And I said, you're absolutely right. And I agree. So it's not all doom and gloom concerning COVID-19, but it has had a negative impact as well as a positive impact in certain ways. So I've just talked about some of the major factors that contribute to the holiday blues. I want to bring things to a close. And I want to talk about a study that was done. And actually, that study is still ongoing. And it was done by Harvard University. They completed the longest study on adult development, which focused on happiness. The study focused on 724 men. And they tracked their lives for over 75 years. So the study embarked on these young men when they're in their teenage years. And the research that has come out of that study is just phenomenal. So here's the most important finding that came out of that study. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Period. Full stop. Let me say that again. I want to amplify it. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Let that sink in. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. The study also said Social connections are really good for us, and loneliness kills. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Social connections are really good for us, and loneliness kills. People who are socially connected to family, friends, and community are happier. They're physically healthier, and they live longer than people who are less well connected. And the experience of loneliness turns out to be toxic. Here's another revelation from the study. People who are more isolated than they want to be from others are less happy. Their health declines earlier in midlife. Their brain functioning declines sooner, and they live shorter lives than people who are not lonely. Now, here's the really sad fact that came out of the study. At any given time, 1 in 5 Americans will report that they are lonely. You can be lonely in a crowd, as I said earlier. You can be lonely in a marriage. And you can be lonely in a relationship with your partner. Do your best to develop quality relationships with people. The quality of your close relationships is what matters, said the researchers of that study. A quality relationship has one really important ingredient. It's built on trust. That's a very important finding, because when you trust people, you can let your guard down. You can be vulnerable. And I know that it's exceedingly difficult for males to be vulnerable, because for some reason, men tend to feel that being vulnerable is embarrassing. I want you to be aware of these important findings. Here's another important finding of that study. It said that living in the midst of conflict is really bad for your health. High conflict marriages or relationships, for example, without any affection is really bad for your health. Perhaps worse than getting divorced was the finding. Living in the midst of a good, warm relationship is protective. An amazing finding from the study. If you are still struggling with the holiday blues right now, I'm going to give you 2 assignments. Number 1, I want you to find a project that you can do. Whatever that project might be. It might be to clean up a room, to reorganize a cupboard, whatever. But I want you to find a project and embrace that project and work on it. And then I want you to tell a good friend what that project is that you're going to engage in, and make an agreement with that friend that you're going to complete it. Give your word that you're going to finish that project. Because once you embrace and identify that project, it will help you to see visible signs of what you have done. And that will help you to feel good. It will help to increase what we call self-mastery skills. You know what? I can do this. I've got this. So find a project and embrace that project and you will get a sense of accomplishment, which will help you to feel better about yourself. And it could bring about some happiness, which will help you to feel better about you. Number 2, I want you to develop a simple exercise program. And you can engage in this program for 5, 10, 15 minutes. It's not about the amount of time. It's about doing. We know that when people exercise, it increases certain neurotransmitters in your brain, which just helps you to feel better. So embrace an exercise program. And if you can do it daily for 5, 10 minutes, that would be phenomenal. But what I'm looking for is consistency. And it doesn't have to be a long time. And when you're exercising, one of the neurotransmitters that it's going to produce, that it will release in your brain, is anandamide. And they call this the neurotransmitter that helps a person to achieve bliss, feelings of goodness. So exercise is really, really good for you. In closing, there's a big difference between the holiday blues, which typically goes away when the holiday season ends, and more severe depression, which lasts longer and interferes with activities of daily living. If the holiday season passes and you are still feeling depressed or anxious, it would be a good idea to seek professional assistance. Talk with your PCP, your primary care physician, or health provider, or go and see a good psychologist. I want you to remember tonight that the building blocks of life are relationships, not individuals, not monies, and not things. People and relationships are everything. So do your best to connect with family, friends, and loved ones that you know that really, really care about you. And if you are struggling with grief, I would encourage you to find a trusted friend that you can talk to and you can open up with and share and be vulnerable with that person. The holiday blues, they can linger, but we don't want them to. So to eliminate the holiday blues, we have to take action. So remember once again, relationships are the building blocks of life. It's not about things and material things or money. People make the world go round. It's been my pleasure, and I appreciate those of you who have tuned in. Good night. Be safe. Take good care. And take good care of yourself as well as take good care of others. It's been my pleasure. Shalom.